I have a cat, so I don't know.
Welcome to the Late Game, episode 40. My name is Lycan. With me, I have my co-host in control. And with us today, joining us for the show, it is Rifkin. How you doing, Rifkin?
I'm doing great, Lycan. How are you doing, man?
Fucking awful, man. So, apologies
Hey, the first
for
question is
the delay.
Is the audio working?
Yes, the audio is working. My mics both are unmuted. I have a recurring license for XSplit, right? And apparently, I'm going to get billed. My license expires at 2 a.m. UTC. I don't know what the current time is UTC, but something makes me think it's tomorrow. But apparently, I've never used XSplit in the time frame where my license gets billed, because from the looks of it, it's not going to actually give me my fucking license until tomorrow morning. So that's fun.
Nice.
Yeah. So apologies for the delay. Thanks for sticking around, everyone. Jeff, how you been? How was your weekend?
Good. Anna was away at PAX, so I just played a lot of games and got some Warhammer in there and just chilled. Pretty average.
What have you been playing most of lately?
Well, Legacy of Void.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you get to watch Red Bull?
I watched a little bit of Red Bull.
Yeah.
I liked the pre-game interviews, the smack talk. Obviously, Huck and MC shined there, but QXC representing the Terrans there did a good job too.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll definitely get into that. There's a lot of good showing at Red Bull. So yeah, without further ado, actually, real quick, PAX. Anything in particular excite you that was shown off there? Either of you?
For me personally, no. Like I'm really excited about the games that weren't shown there. Actually, like XCOM 2, Metal Gear Solid 5, which people are playing right now, but I'm not watching because I want to play it myself. And then Fallout 4, Deus Ex Machina 2, or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
It's not actually, I don't know, the new one. They're all going to be cool.
So, all right, classic video game series that I've never played. One being Zelda, the other being Metal Gear Solid. Mm-hmm. So if you had to say one of those that I need to go into first, what would it be?
One more time, I was reading Destiny in chat and super confused, but go ahead.
Is he in the chat?
He's actually in the chat.
His sleep schedule was hella fucked, mate. He's in no condition for this today. Dang.
I've never played Zelda, and I've never played Metal Gear Solid. If I had to kick one of those off in my free time, which one would you recommend?
They're both absolutely amazing games, and nobody, you'll talk to some people, and one person or the other will tell you, this is the best game I've ever played, and neither of them are wrong. So it's just kind of more what you're into. Metal Gear Solid for me is 1 through 4. These are the best games I've ever played in my life. They're way up there. Story is outrageously Japanese, but it's really fun, and a little bit archaic the further back you go, but the closer you get to it, very fun. But then Zelda, Zelda 64 in particular, or Ocarina of Time, excuse me, not Zelda 64. That's one of my favorite games of all time as well.
Is Metal Gear like Splinter Cell in a way?
I've never played the Splinter Cell games, but
it can be stealthy. It can be stealthy like Splinter Cell.
It's supposed to be stealthy. It's supposed to be, but you just don't have to. You can certainly.
You play on easy mode, you just go guns blazing. That's what I do. I'm such a bad Metal Gear player. But yo, Metal Gear did the coolest thing. I'm not gonna spoil it for Lycan because he's never played it, but Psycho Mantis and the whole memory card thing was the coolest thing in a video game I've ever seen in my life. That was the first thing that really blew my mind.
Yeah.
All right. Well, check those out. A lot of hype around Metal Gear Solid, so I guess I'll have to check a few of them out and see what the hype is about. But with that, let's go ahead and actually jump into the show topics. Today we're going to be talking about WCS Round of 16, seeing what's going on with that. We'll discuss the macro mechanics changes and the balance changes, actually. Blizzard has poked a few of those at us. We're going to see what's coming with that. Hell, it's about time. We'll talk a little bit about that. Rifkin and Zombie Grub gave their feedback. We'll get a little more in-depth on their feelings and whatnot. We'll talk about Red Bull, exciting tournament, lots of smack talk, as Jeff was saying. And then we're going to actually... there's a topic that we're going to bring up, and I think we might hold it off until Destiny is back. Or Destiny, since I know you're listening, if you're up for discussing this, we want to talk about the relationship between streamers and their subs and their donors and all that stuff, and just, I guess the influence that has on the way a streamer conducts himself and whatnot. So if you want to come on for that, you can. Just shoot me a
Because me and In Control don't have any subscribers
you do.
Wow.
You do. But I'm
wow.
also... Yeah, listen... Holmes. You guys are both able to. Jeff is going to be here next week, and you are always able to be
I'm not
here.
going to be here next week.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Oh, you're going to be cast round of 16?
It's not announced yet, but there's a chance I might be in Europe. Yeah.
High possibilities.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, cool. Well, then let's go ahead and kick this off real quick. Give me 2 seconds, folks. Rifkin.
Hello.
Do you know what a popsicle stick joke is?
Are those like the really bad, lame jokes? Or
Yeah. Tell us a popsicle stick joke while I pull this up.
You can't put me in a spot like that, man. That's like at a party when they're like, "My friend's so funny. You're so funny. Tell him a joke." And you sit there and you're just like, "What the fuck? I'm just sarcastic all the time. I don't have like those, man." Actually, I'm gonna try this on In Control, and I don't know if it'll work. Okay, In Control. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Smell map.
Smell map who?
No, thank you. Ugh.
There you go.
Oh, cool. That was perfect. Just enough to get us into WCS round of 16. All right, I'll pull the groups up for you guys.
Can you give me an easy link so I don't have to Google it?
Yep, I'm gonna link it to you guys. Let's black out the screen real quick. Send that to you. All right, cool. Steven said he needs some time to emotionally prep himself for that topic, so that'll be enough to help us get through a couple topics. And cool. All
Real
right.
tight ship you run around here.
Right? Cool. So let me screen capture this for everyone else at home. Bada bing, bada boom. And we have it up there. Cool. All right, WCS round of 16 coming up in Poland, nonetheless. Jeff, have you done an event in Poland before?
Yeah, a couple.
What do you? How is the crowd there? I hear it's
Poland's
good.
incredible. Absolutely incredible. That's the reason they went to Katowice last year for the IEM finals, and they will go there as often as they can because they fill out an entire stadium. People are super ecstatic. They cheer for all the teams. They're very respectful and polite for the most part. None of that booing of certain CSGO team shenanigans. And go ahead.
Is this at Katowice? I had heard it was somewhere else because I remember seeing players like upset that they didn't
Krakow.
like. Okay, yeah, I heard people say they didn't love that it was going to Poland or something, but I know nothing about Poland, so I don't want to get caught in that trap.
Yeah, I mean, not any site's going to appease everyone, but it's Poland and their audience and their crowd is great. And Carmack, who's the head of ESL, of course, or I don't know, whatever, one of the heads of ESL,
Yep.
is of course from Poland, has a lot of national pride, and is very happy to bring such a production there.
Yeah. It's the last time someone talked about Poland on the show, they got fired. So, but I think this is pretty civil. We don't have to worry about that. Yeah.
Was it your show?
It was.
Thorn?
Oh,
Yeah.
You
where
went
did
your
camera
show
go
to
just
talk?
now? What the?
Your
Is it back?
camera. Yep. Your camera's being weird. Anyway,
Yeah.
either way, so looking at the groups, is there any? There's the cliche question. We'll get through this topic fast. We'll talk Rifkin. Any group that sticks out to you as the group of death, so to speak.
I don't know about the group of death, but I'm actually really interested in obviously Group C. Some of the best players there with Hitman dropping out too. That creates like all that question mark about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm actually surprisingly more interested in Group D. Jaedong is obviously one of my favorites, and so is 4GG. Little Bao, we just saw in the season 2 like finals. I mean, I think Group D is going to be one of the more entertaining groups, to be honest.
Yeah, I can agree with that. What about you, Jeff?
I think it's a no-brainer that Group C is the group of death. I don't know who's going to replace Hitman, but you have Hydra and Polt, who are the two favorites, and then Violet, who's not far off.
Mm-hmm.
So that just makes it very, very tough. But otherwise, I would say actually what's kind of interesting for me is just how surprising these groups are. You know, Elfie making the run that he did to be here. Betrayus, like, just seems out of place. Even Sen was, like, very unimpressive in the round of 32.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's guys that are hot and cold, like Xanster. Xanster either looks really incredible or just gets put down pretty hard. It's weird to see Iagaz up here. I mean, all these guys deserve it. So when I say weird, I don't mean, like, they finagled their way in here or something like that. Elfie kind of did, but still, even to get through the group in round of 32, I mean, everybody deserves it. It's just these names are kind of surprising. 4GG announcing he's going to retire soon. Snoot always on the chopping block of is he the best or not. Gung Fu Banda, another great result from him. He was I think this is his third showing all 3 seasons now in the round of 16 at least. So I think that's him. It's pretty impressive.
I really like seeing him there too, because Gung Fu Bando was one of the Zotac Cup / Go for StarCraft heroes who was not really very good for a long time, and then changed his playstyle up and started doing WCS qualifiers. So I don't know that I think he's going to win anything, but for me, it's really cool seeing him there because I got to cast him a lot back when he was just like the all-in nobody.
Yeah.
There's that base trade plug. And then Mana, of course, a tried and true European player, very good. And Marine Lord's got to be one of the European favorites, but I wouldn't call him hot or cold, but there just have been a couple tournaments where he gets put down pretty hard as well. So it's like one of the more up-in-the-air tournaments, except for I find Hydra in particular is going to make these groups really boring again. Although he's put in Group C, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought it was, I don't want to like start tooting my own horn about our tournament yet because we're not talking about it, but it blew me away that like everyone assumed Hydra was going to win Hell It's About Time, and like it was so boring talking to people because everyone's like Hydra's got this, and then Hydra finishes like 4th or something. Mm-hmm. So I mean, like he's a really good player. I'm not going to try and pretend like he's not. I'm just saying maybe we'll get a surprise. I don't know.
Yeah, or maybe so. Maybe it's going to end up once again with Polt and Hydra trading off wins, so Polt will win this one, and then. But
we'll see. Polt's TVZ in particular hasn't been super amazing.
Yeah, and I've heard that the rumor is that Hitman's going to get replaced by a laser, another Zerg, so that'd be like a group of all TVZ.
By the rules, that would be who he gets replaced with, but I hope that Hitman hasn't confirmed, right? He said in the chat maybe.
Yeah,
and
I mean, we don't know. Yeah,
it's a lot of money to pass up on. I don't, obviously I don't know his situation, so I don't want to pass too much judgment. Maybe it's like, hey Jeff, I'm going to Mexico to build houses for the obliterated poor, and it's like, oh, okay. Well, he says a family thing, but it's like it's a lot of money to pass up on.
Yeah, agreed. And this guy's new to the spotlight. Did he say family? Because I saw in the thing personal, but did he say family somewhere else?
Oh, personal, sure.
Well, because I wonder, like, he's not used to the spotlight.
No.
He's always been in the back. Maybe he's just like, it's really just something like school or whatever, and he's very serious about school. WCS
maybe.
has never been at the forefront, so he's just like, it's personal and doesn't want to say, I'm turning down the round of 16, my breakout performance for,
It's kind of racist, Lycan. Lycan's assuming that because he's Asian, school's that important to him. I can't believe this.
No, I'm going to take this even further. I think the real Hitman just couldn't afford to hire the same actor again to portray him. Yes.
All right. Well, either way, I think Group C is going to be exciting. I think Group D, I want to see if Jaedong, gets out, goes to the second day of the tournament. And is this going to be a 3-day tournament? Do we know if it's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
I don't think they've announced schedule yet. But it is.
Where's Arami?
It's round of 16, round of 8, round of 4. It's the whole way. So it's definitely not 2 days. It's several at the very least.
Yeah.
I could tell you from my own, perhaps experience, that it's broken up into 2 separate kind of events, if you will.
That'll be interesting to find out what that could possibly mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, WCS round of 16 coming up. September 13th, I believe, is the start date, and it's going to be exciting no matter what. There are a few people where WCS have a pretty significant meaning, WCS points. So I don't know if there's still a foreign hope, though. Actually, let me...
Foreign hope for what?
For BlizzCon.
Oh, I mean...
I wouldn't take too much away from either Petraeus...
No. He means points, buddy.
Oh, points. No, sorry. I'm
Yeah. Like, I have no question. I mean, what, Gung Fu, who was it, Lobo, making it into the finals last season, I have no question that a foreigner could get into the finals for this. It's just, is there a foreigner that, Lobo and Bunny are the top 2 right now, 21 and 24.
What I'd love for you to do, Lycan, because I remember you brought this up at the start of the season, was the whole, like, how much does the Korean points weigh in?
Yeah.
So, like, once all the points are finalized for BlizzCon, go, like, specifically math out if they didn't have, like, double tournaments or something and see if foreigners would have had a chance. Or if it still would have been, you know what, these guys, they traveled to DreamHacks and they still won it anyways, so the foreigners didn't stand a chance anyhow. Yeah. Because that'd be kind of cool to see what those numbers look like, since I don't think anyone else is going to crunch them.
No, I still have the spreadsheet, so I've been wanting to do that because at first, after the first season, I remember thinking, okay, you know what, maybe I overreacted, maybe this isn't the case, but it really does look, especially with a lot of people that stay at the top of both the SSL and GSL, it does look like that really heavily weighted the Koreans. Again, there's the debate of, well, we don't care about that on one side. The other side is like, oh, well, it's obviously, giving them way more, a bigger disparity between WCS for the foreigners and for the Koreans. So, yeah, I'll bring that up and we'll discuss that. We'll wait till closer, I guess, to the end of Season 3, probably near the time of BlizzCon. We'll talk about that. But moving forward, let's talk macro mechanics and balance changes. First of all, let's talk overall changes. Jeff, you've been playing a lot of Legacy of the Void.
Yeah.
What have your feelings been after a little more time to hash out the overall feeling of not having to chrono?
It gets better and better. I find that the biggest change, honestly, was just in like wrapping your brain around this completely different play style and expectation. Like the first couple of sessions of playing, I would constantly accidentally warp in on a pylon that's not sharing a nexus or a gate or a warp gate. And it's like the second you do it, you're like, oh fuck, because it just takes forever. Like whatever's coming in,
it's like 15 seconds or something insane. Yeah,
16. You never look at
16.
something for 16 seconds in StarCraft. Like you're not going to sit there and wait for them, and so you just it's just silly. Still accidentally chrono boosting things, without chrono boost, so stuff like that would happen. But as time went on, like you start to, the disruptor actually is making appearances. You're a little bit more okay with it. Protoss has to be a lot less aggressive in the early game. Certainly that is true. And then, you just kind of wrap your head around it. It's interesting, though, because what times we live in, like, they're already, if you look at the patch notes or whatever they're called, the updates, they're already like, yeah, we'll bring back Chrono Boost. We'll have it changed to, like, a passive that just, like, rests on a certain production building or something like that. Like, different things. So it's like I feel like you're on a ship in very rocky waters. Like, just things are changing constantly so much. But that's part of playing the beta.
I'm actually, that Chrono Boost change they suggested, I don't know if we're supposed to talk about that now, like,
yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, I think it's really cool how, I look at that not for the new way that the Chrono is going to affect Protoss builds, but I love the potential mind games you can throw with it since it's permanently on a building. And scouting is going to be harder than ever. Like, you could put that thing on your, say, Twilight Council, but it doesn't matter if you're secretly going for, like, a Stargate or something. Like, it's going to be really cool to see how that comes into actual builds, but also how people scout and read that in the pro games. Because right now, I think it's pretty much agreed. Like, nobody really knows all the builds, so everyone's like, what the fuck did I just scout?
Yeah, the builds are different. That was one of the biggest things we talked about last week, is that with those huge changes, those are big design changes, right? So it's not just, oh, okay, a unit was nerfed and we have to kind of use it a little differently. It's the game has been fucking changed. You have to play it differently. And a lot of people didn't kind of grasp that when it first happened. But, so Chrono, Jeff, do you play random at all, or do you just, have you been pro-tossing it up?
No, I play, I had a sub Sunday, so I played some off-race with the other guys. I think it's a lot of what we already talked about in the sense that, like, Zerg, it's really interesting, the critiques, actually. So, like, in my opinion, Zerg is, again, kind of passively buffed in the sense that Terran and Protoss had this huge, even if, I guess you could call it a nerf, but honestly, it's just more like they're just bogged down with trying to figure out how to play their big changes, whereas Zerg had something very simplified for them. But then I read on Reddit, and again, anytime you say, like, I read on Reddit, it's like, oh, okay, like, everyone pull on your casual caps and, like, just enter into the chaos. But, like, there are people complaining that it's boring. Actually, I think this came from pro gamers. I think it was either TLO or Snoot or something like that. They were complaining that it's boring to look at your army too much. Yeah. And it's like, and that was, like, such a hilarious, absolutely mind-boggling complaint to make about the game. Like, ugh. I'm spending all this time microing my army, and I don't have these mundane... And then he was like, oh, TLO said that. It's like, oh,
well, so
that makes perfect sense.
So one thing is, like, that is seeming to be only a Zerg affliction, right? Because Terran, Protoss still have to look back. You have, for Protoss, you have stuff that comes out of the Stargate, stuff that comes out of the Robo that, you have to go back to hotkey.
I'm going to jump in there real quick.
Yeah.
Let's not spend too much time overanalyzing this. It's just a stupid comment, to be honest with you. Like, you spend more time looking at your army because you're not injecting all the time. But it's if you spent any significant chunk of time at all looking at your queen as you injected, then you're not TLO to begin with. So it's a stupid fucking comment. To just carte blanche. It's just across the board a dumb thing to say.
Just one thing I found interesting, though, and this isn't to talk on balance, because, again, it's beta, it's supposed to not be perfectly balanced and all that. I do find it interesting, though, that it seems like all these changes were, like, hardcore tweak Terran, hardcore tweak Protoss, but Zerg's, like, mostly okay. We made their late game really strong, so we're just gonna, like, not really do much with that.
That's the beta though, and I think that's like at first I was really pissed. I agree with you. Like it's giant changes, and like the first day I played, I'm getting all these doom tweets. The Muslims like, well, never coming. You know, like, just simply not fun. Nathanius, of course, his standard generic complaint about the game. You know, he's become the crockety old man at the ripe old age of 23 or whatever the fuck it is. But like it was really bad at the beginning, and it was because we were so used to this thing for the last 5 years, and then they're like, hey, let's try it without it. And I don't know that the game's better, is what I would say, and I think the changes are gigantic, but things have started to pick up. Played a few games with Daishi. Terran are more aggressively expanding because it's actually kind of interesting. They don't have mules, so those aggressive expansions don't pay off as much, but because they don't have mules, they benefit from having their resources spread out across different bases. And then those bases are a lot of times safer because we're seeing planetary fucking fortresses at the third base and beyond, like as opposed to, a million orbitals, and then if you play at minute 45, they start putting planetary fortresses in random places around the map.
Right.
So it's just taken a lot of play change, or playstyle change, and then Terrans are scanning a hell of a lot more. So things like Dark Templar, by the way, are a lot less effective. I'm like, DT opening, and it's like, well, thank God I've got these 5 scans, because Lord knows I was using them for nothing else. So Terran, they're starting to kind of pick it up a little bit.
That's something I didn't understand with this change either. Like, they had to know scans were going to get used more, because the reality is you really just don't have a lot of depots in the early game anyways to drop supply on in the first place. But there was that whole debacle with the missile turret coming off of the engineering bay, and then we put back on the engineering bay because it limited Protoss too much. And I feel like, well, you kind of had the same problem. Like, you were worried about too easy detection for Dark Templar with free turrets. Now you've got like free scans. Like, what are you thinking here? What's the thought process? Do they not keep these things in mind while continuing to change?
But one of the things we also see is that Terrans aren't making the orbital command as quickly too. So I imagine that there had to be in some cases, where Terrans are using those minerals, and they can still get caught off by the Dark Templar, assuming that they didn't go for that orbital, right? They fast expanded, didn't get an orbital. They're putting that money into more barracks or whatnot.
I mean, the reason we're talking about this too, guys, is like I see some people already talking about this in chat. Like, they are changing it, but we're trying to set the tone for like where it is right now and like how this patch went compared to what they're looking to change as well.
Yeah, one thing I do want to bring up about this. How do you feel about the speed of the game, Jeff? Now that when they made these changes, I know we're going to get a little bit of the macro back, but I feel like it really slowed down the game back to almost Heart of the Swarm feeling for me anyway, even with the extra workers.
It's hard for me to. I mean, I certainly to a certain extent it has slowed down, but I'll tell you, it's like I still like where Legacy of the Void is at quite a bit. And then in terms of game speed, mostly because of the harvesters that you start off with, the game just gets interesting a lot earlier on. Zergs are being very diverse. There's early cheese that they're doing to great degrees of success. There's mid-game timing attacks, and the late game strong. And like there's diversity all up and down there, which is just for the first time. By the way, that's like the absolute first time we've ever seen that in a million years with Zerg. From Wings of Liberty to Heart of the Swarm, Zerg has always been like in this matchup, I can do one of maybe 3 things. In this matchup, one of maybe 3 things. And in ZVZ, mutas or roaches. Or, an early Lingbane all in. I'm being obviously simplistic about this, but it's just in a better place that way. But the game speed, the only comment I have about that is like when Legacy of Void first came out, that economy was fucking... It was intense. It was so fast.
Yeah.
It was like you had one strategy and then your base is mined out. And if that strategy didn't either deal the damage it needed to or win the game, you were on your back feet. And that was kind of fun, and I felt like they dialed it back a little bit too much in my own personal preference. Whether or not it's best for the game, I don't know. But now with the macro changes back, I haven't noticed the game slowing down too terribly. I think it absolutely did at first, but now it's kind of picking back up.
So my point of view comes from what is almost strictly Archon mode, and some context here, guys. Zomgrub and I hit Grandmaster Archon mode. Woo! So we're hitting harder players like Druby and such, but like I feel like that the pace of the game, especially with these recent changes that were slowing it down, really didn't affect the early game. All it really did, at least from a Terran perspective here, was like it did slow down how fast you can expand. Like Control mentioned, you can't really do those aggressive expands anymore. You don't have the mules to pay off for it, but you're still doing the same Reaper harass. You're still harassing with tanks or Banshee or whatever it is you normally do. And those timings really didn't change much with the lack of mules. It's like slightly slower. So I think what's kind of cool is it does. I feel like it arcs into the late game a little bit easier, but it is slower, but oh so marginally in my opinion.
Okay. Let's move now a little towards the changes that they're proposing. So they're going to bring back the mule. It's going to be an auto drop with limited capability compared to what the mule used to be. Zerg, I believe we're going to now spawn an extra larva, and Protoss is going to have Chrono, but it's going to be defaulted to the Nexus, always on, and then you can switch it to different devices. So we'll kick that to you, Rifkin, first. What do you think of those changes overall?
Well, I mean, I kind of touched on it earlier when we mentioned it, but just again, I think it's really cool because it's something where I think for a Protoss player, you still get the benefit of Chrono. So if you really want to get like a depths out, you can get the gateway or the warp gate tech done faster, all that good stuff, without worrying about missing a Chrono first off, or having a full nexus of energy because you were busy microing elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But secondly, I really want to see. I'm thinking right now it's going to come into some mind games. Not a lot of players in StarCraft 2 actually play mind games anymore, but there's guys like Hearthstone who would fake out a Colossus and then actually go like Templar or something and catch people like Bunny off guard. So I really want to see those guys make use of the Chrono in sort of like I guess scouting baits, if that makes sense. I think there's a lot of cool potential for it.
Cool. Jeff, your thoughts?
On what?
The readjustments they're going to make when they bring back certain things like the Mule Chrono and then additional larva for the inject.
I don't. Unfortunately, I don't have super strong opinions on this.
Okay.
I'm like in a very experimental mode with Legacy of the Void. Like I've had strong opinions and stuff, and then in implementation, I've been very wrong. So I'm kind of humbled by the thought that it's better to play it and work with it as opposed to just being like that's going to be absolutely terrible. There've been a couple that haven't come out. I'll just say this that were actually terrible, but that's why they didn't come out.
Yep.
So I think one of the cool things about that too, by the way, that mentality is like you don't get adjusted and you don't get preconceptions about things. I've talked with a lot of Protoss players about the carrier, for example, and how everyone's just not used it for 4 years, so they think it's terrible. So they haven't even tried experimenting with it in Legacy of the Void, where it's a fucking rock star unit now. So it's like you've got this preconception already made up. So if you make too many judgments about these things before you actually try them, you'll never get to try them and realize how good they may or may not be. So I just like we're talking about it, but like within Control as an example, don't make too many preconceptions because you might be surprised at how good or bad something is.
That's a good way to approach a lot of these changes, actually. I think we're going to leave the rest of the discussion about these things for the other topics because they'll come up and we'll discuss, like for instance, Adepts. We're going to get into that when we talk about Red Bull and all that jazz. So moving on to the next topic, let's go into this. Will have nothing to do with Legacy of the Void. Hell, it's about time. So last week we had Zombie Grub on. She talked about, the feelings just in general. Didn't really go into too much, though, about the event. She said that they felt good about it. They had a good time and all that stuff. So I'm going to change the title. Hell, it's about time. Cool. But then this week they released their sentiments about the overall experience, giving some numbers, telling people, the feedback on what it was like working with the different companies, what it was like getting the actual organization thing down, and then going through the production, and then their overall sentiments about the event. Rifkin, some strong words were said, some harsh feelings. I'll leave it to you to start where you want, I guess, with the, what you want to talk about.
Wait, what strong words? What harsh feelings? What happened? What did I miss?
All right, let's kick it off with the moderators real quick. Let's talk about the moderator complaint.
I really hate that even got brought up in this. Like a lot of people, I'm not going to try and win hearts.
Before you do that, I want the first thing you to talk about is your logs. I want you to make that point real quick while everyone's listening.
Okay, so for however long that Partouf's been with us, like 3 years, the conception of Base Rate TV, we've had chat logs that go all the way back. So a lot of the times we get like these complaints from people about things, and we can just literally go look up chat logs from like 3 years ago. So if people are like, well, I said nothing wrong, and we look up your chat logs, it's like, yeah, you actually have been like a shitty person for 3 months. Like, you can't really argue with what you've said yourself. Those logs don't make themselves up. But I guess the thing Lycan was referring to is in a Reddit thread, we had someone bring up a lot of problems with our moderators, and it feels like people are really trying to witch hunt like Partoof into this like next no look no hands moderator guy. But like Partoof and everyone do things fairly, and I think one of the problems a lot of people have is they think they get timed out for nothing. But the thing is, we have like debates and stuff in moderator chat. People like say, "Hey, is this guy actually being shitty?" And like a couple other people will look up chat logs, and if they all agree, then they'll ban him or time him out. But people will be like, "Oh, he said nothing wrong and he got banned." It's like, well, yeah, because he said something really shitty 5 minutes ago, and they've been discussing it since then. That sort of thing. So I tried to make the post. Normally, I go into full fucking like fuck you, and fuck you mode when I post on Reddit. I tried to be less like that and a bit more objective. But this guy's post was full of things like accusing us of like having our mods buy their way into mods. Like, yo, if I wanted to make like some extra bucks, there's some ways to do it that don't compromise like the integrity of the channel. You know, like it was just insane to me that someone thought people bought moderator status on Base Trade TV. Like, who even cares that much? All you do is get shit on by Reddit anyways. You're buying your way into like hate.
All right, so I'm glad you clarified that. The gist of that, folks, is that people were accusing people. They'd say something nice about Zombie Grub or something, and then they'd get timed out, or they believe they were saying something nice and they get timed out, and they'd say, "Oh, I didn't say anything crappy." And the reality is that before anyone gets actually banned, the logs are checked. They don't, they have a whole process, right? Isn't that the way, like, before anyone's actually banned, there's a discussion on
yeah, there's like a
on how it
ban list
goes?
too, and it says like why somebody was banned, like was being really sexist or was just trolling really hard, shit like that.
Yeah. Cool beans. All right, so let's talk about the rest of the event. I don't want to, open up the can of worms that you don't want to, but is there anything you'd want to talk about in regards to certain organizational aspects that you had trouble with? Not necessarily, oh, this was kind of difficult, but oh, these people were difficult, and make sure
I mean, I don't really have dirty laundry to air. The folks we worked with for it were fantastic. Some of you guys may know the name Ken Silva. He helped us with the production side of things. We had some problems with the venue, and the venue was very naive when it came to running some things. But I mean, I there were things that went wrong for sure. You guys saw those on stream, and it was nothing that anyone did. Like, no one tripped over a cord and said like, no, I didn't do it. Like, just things like limitations to the venue that we didn't know, or power supply stuff. Like,
Cool. All right, let's talk about some more positive stuff, and positive in the extent of it's not just drama. What was the hardest lesson you learned about organizing this event?
how much unexpected costs you'll have to deal with. We had budgeted for additional costs. Like, we assumed like maybe something would break, or we'd have to rent another computer, or like we tried to post some numbers in the thread. I'm not sure if you linked that in your chat or not, but the article Zombie Grub wrote was both of us. Like, that wasn't just her. We both worked on that, and we tried to post some numbers in there so you guys could get an idea of what we paid for things. But the biggest thing was like I had given us like an error of like $2,000 to $3,000 in case stuff went wrong. So it's like, oh, the microphone's broke. Well, let's go and buy a new one really quick or something like that. But we still went way over that budget just because things kept going wrong. Bulbs breaking, this, that, not having Red Bull show up. So I mean, we made a lot of trips to like Walmart. Fucking ice being $4 a bag, stuff like that adds up very quickly. But yeah, the hardest lesson was just realizing how much money you were gonna need for this, because it was it was really expensive just to run the event and get the prize pool, even with Kickstarter's help. But a lot of people think that the whole thing was funded by Kickstarter. It was not. Just the prize pool and the like miscellaneous cool stuff like the ice cream truck. Everything else, like the venue, the backdrops, printing, all that stuff, we've been saving up for like 7 months to throw something like this.
Okay. Last thing, you sent me a video that's really awesome. It kind of really highlights the spirit of the event and the fun of it. So if you could, throughout the show, please link that for the viewers, especially if you guys didn't get a chance to see the event. It's really awesome. Yep. This guy made a really awesome video.
Yeah, Richard, I just linked it in chat there. Richard, if you guys don't like Friends music, just skip about a minute and a half in. It goes over to like some of the stuff that didn't come through stream very well, like the dance contest or the after party stuff at the end of the video. It was really cool, and I had a big dumb smile on my face watching that video. I was really glad he made that.
Yeah, it's very awesome. Definitely does a really good job of just like again, making it look the way it was if you were there. It kind of conveyed that feel through the video. So again, Friends music at the beginning, but if you're not a fan, just skip that. The rest is worth it.
Yo, how about that? There's that one guy though at the tournament. I'm not sure if anyone here saw him. I think his name was like Lycan or something. Did like an interview or some shit. I
I don't know what you're talking about.
Lycan actually did like a really good interview with Intense and Seed. And if you guys haven't seen that, I gave him the video, so hopefully he'll post it to like his own YouTube or something. But it was surprisingly good to come guest interview.
Yeah, thank you. You're a sweet guy. Alrighty, let's move on now. This is going to be a quick show, guys. Steven, if you're watching, we're going to be coming to you after this topic. We'll take a break and then get you. And I'll message him that too. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about Red Bull, right? First of all, let's talk about the Red Bull format. Jeff, the format, everyone had, I believe, 3 lives and a reflector. It was that same thing they did last year where they brought a bunch of people and you could select, who you were going to play next. They'd go in order, and then you get to choose. Except this time, I don't believe they had it before. They added this reflector mechanic, right? So if you didn't want to play an opponent, you could reflect them onto someone else. And I believe you got to choose who you reflected it to. So I guess overall, what do you think of Red Bull experimenting with this kind of format?
I think the game structure, format, and stuff like that was really good, especially since it fits the Red Bull motif and feel of, like, the players get up there. They're supposed to talk pretty boldly, see a lot of personality. Red Bull really takes care of you. There's the behind-the-scenes pictures that Red Bull posted of them playing ping pong and just hanging out and having a good time. Like, they really take care of you. I think it's an easy thing to say that as far as, like, almost every player that comes from a Red Bull event tells you that they had the best fun and the most fun there. They take them out to dinner. They treat them really well. So just this format bringing out the personalities and allowing for them to talk about it. And, the life system wouldn't be as interesting if it was just analysts and casters talking about it forever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's way more fun with the players coming up and being like, all right, these guys, like Huck was saying, how dare they even talk about picking us, so now we're going to play them. And then the games become a little bit more interesting. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, QXC, pro smack talker. I really enjoyed him. And then Huck as well, really awesome with that. Yeah, so go ahead.
So just one thing I want to comment for the format. Like I'm still not convinced of whether it's a good or a bad thing, but in both instances of this, you've had these like alliances form to take somebody out, and I wish they would almost like somehow broadcast that portion, like almost not quite Survivor style, like, but it was I couldn't watch during the weekend live, but I did my best to get caught up this morning just so I could be like a good guest on the show. But I was talking to like some of the folks while they were there playing, and like they're telling me like, oh yeah, basically all the teams agreed to gang up against Reality and try and like knock them out and stuff like that. And I wish that was something done more publicly. I don't know if they did it in this one, but I know they did not do it in the other one. It's just kind of like, oh, I guess they're teaming up, where it's like I would love to have like a secret backroom interview where Huck's just quietly like, yeah, so we all agreed to like basically knock out Reality and Journey first because they're probably going to be too tough to take on later or something like that,
Yeah, they did say a little bit of that. What was it? I think it was QXC during an interview said, "Oh, we're all the Terrans have kind of agreed that we're using the reflector on the Protoss to kind of get rid of them." So I thought the format was pretty unique, and I think it gave people a lot of chances. It's much better than just, okay, let's do a standard bracket, and you lost your best of 3, or you lost in your group and you're done. This kind of really made it fun, especially for the small number of people that were there, the teams that were there. Let's talk about Protoss. Let's talk about Adepts. Granted, one thing is that the Terran economy was really hurt. Their mineral income was really hurt. We still saw them have a lot of success.
Can I interject here?
Yeah.
What are your guys' thoughts? I think Control, I'm more interested in his because he's played a lot of tournaments as well. On the fact that it was basically a different game from qualifiers to actual event. Like, is that okay? Is that something like they should have predicted or tried to work around? I mean, like, obviously it went off without a hitch with the game changing, but I mean, it was a pretty different game from when they did the qualifiers to the actual Santa Monica event.
Oh, that's just the danger of running a game in the beta, and you just have to downplay it and just go over it. Like, it's just something that can happen.
I agree with that sentiment. I think it's unfortunate because I think the only reason QXC and BSTQ lost is because of the patch. But
the only reason.
Well,
spoken like a simple man, but let me tell you, there was once a time when Idra won an MLG, and that weekend, literally going into the event, like literally the Friday of that event. And that hasn't happened since, because I think it was pretty unwise by Blizzard, and they would probably agree with that.
Is my camera off? Sorry.
Your camera's screwed up. Destiny's.
What the fuck?
Destiny, are you there?
Yeah, I just hopped in because, yeah. Why, do you want me to leave?
No, just give me your camera.
Do I have
Sorry to
to?
interrupt in control. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Control, go ahead.
It's okay. This show is always a shit show, man. It's like
I didn't expect
get-
him
we
to
get
do that.
Ezra in here already?
I'll respect it someday, Lycan, but this show, Jesus fucking Christ, man. Idra won an MLG because of a major roach change that went through literally the Friday or maybe Thursday of the actual MLG. So these things have happened throughout StarCraft, and that's just the way it's going to be. You try to minimize it, but it just happens. So I'm sure Red Bull should send an email to Blizzard and be like, yo, we told you about this event, we talked about it, it'd be nice if in the future perhaps you hold off on a patch like that until the Monday after the event.
Sounds reasonable.
Or even just have like a custom game or something that has the same like information as the previous patch type thing.
But then that kills the interest in it. I mean, like you should never have something over like something that big changing going into an event, because then that's the discussion anyways, and it steals from your show.
Fair enough.
Regardless. But it's okay. I don't think that was the biggest. Like, I don't know. I didn't watch all of Red Bull, but I didn't think that stole the show and ruined it or anything like that. It was obviously a massive thing, and Protoss did a hell of a lot better than I thought they would. They're doing a lot better, and Terran did a lot worse. I saw all those Terran pairs, and I was just like, okay, Terran's going to win this, because previously in Archon mode they were doing great, but in that tournament they got picked on a little bit. Didn't do as well.
It was Sheree Bob. All right, cool. Sorry, I'm trying to fix.
Are you happy now?
I am. I'm happier.
Fuck you.
You made
Hi,
Jeff shit
Destiny.
on me. Granted, there were little hiccups of my own fault earlier, but regardless.
So is my cam still borked, by the
No,
way?
your
Or?
cam's good. Your cam's good. So, with regard to that, Jeff, did you get to see the one base ghost build from?
Yeah, I watched the video. It's amazing.
What did you think of that?
It was really cool. It's very cool, and I thought I really liked Red Bull's ability to pipe in on the player's commentary, especially with Archon mode. I think that's extremely intelligent in that format in particular, because it was just funny listening. Because you'd think they would be laughing their ass. I mean, they did laugh some, but it's just like you can't take that. I mean, it's a good build. Let's not shit on ourselves here. It's a good build, and it was executed really well. But they were just so nonchalant about it. Like Beastie Cutie's all business, and QXC's laughing a little bit, but at the same time very competitive. So it was just fun and great to watch. Cool build.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to try to replicate it on ladder. We'll see what we can do with that. But how do you feel about the strength of the Adept? I think that was really highlighted in this series. Do you think that it's in a good place? They're looking to do a damage buff. I don't know if they're going to do a health nerf before they do that, but they're going to do a damage buff.
Yeah, they think it's funny because the comments, from what I could tell from Blizzard's direction, was that the just general health buff is not interesting. So they're like talking about doing an attack upgrade. But that's like exactly the same thing in a different area. I'm one of the more passive people about the Adept. There's some people that like literally think it's the spawn of Satan, and there's other people that are just like, oh yeah, it's completely broken and balanced. I play top 20 GM at Legacy of the Void. I played against a lot of these top guys, and I've had a few games that have been absolutely wrecked by the Adept. Like certainly in PvP, if they get in your base. And that guy who made the thread on Reddit, the Theo guy who was #1 for a little while on Legacy of the Void, I guess, he was talking about how it's really uninteresting that basically you have to go 2 or 3 Adepts at the beginning, and then the only way to stop it in PvP is by pylon block. I kind of disagree. I think that's actually pretty okay. His idea of them not being able to pass through units because as a way to perhaps solve that, I think that would be a giant nerf to the Adept, but maybe that's the direction people want to go. I think the Adept is very strong, but I think the Adept paired with the Zealot doing 30 damage when it charges,
Oh yeah.
that's ridiculous. Like one of those two things should be taken down several notches. My fear, though, is that the Adept would go the way of the Reaper if you do too much, but the stuff they're talking about I don't think would do that. And then the Zealot, the Zealot has never been, I mean, and this you can just assume is Protoss bias, but Jesus Christ, 4 or 5 Zealots charging on something and just absolutely obliterating it the Zealot has never been more interesting to me than it is right now, but it is probably significantly overpowered and needs to be toned down a little bit.
They said it was a mistake, actually, yeah. That they didn't mean for it. I think they made some change. They forgot to reverse one part of it, and now the Zealot did way more damage than they meant it to.
So did you play the first version of the beta, Jeff, before they gave the Adept the shield upgrade? So do you remember that old upgrade, the really dumb one they had? Like the Yeah, it's like only if you killing blow as well. Like you basically get a Mutalisk attack or something. Like it. I really hope they don't go that direction again because it was a really stupid upgrade to be honest, and there's terrible. But I think right now what I really actually like is the Adept gives the Protoss army that sort of buffer that Zealots can't. I mean, maybe they're a little too tanky right now for the damage they deal, but it's really kind of cool seeing a Protoss army actually able to just sit there and not do or die. You're like, oh, the Adept line fell. Well, I guess now I'm going to start falling back, or the Adept line's doing really well. I mean, it's such a funky unit right now. I actually like it quite a bit. It's just a shame that they do need to tweak it.
Steven, you've been playing the beta a bit, right?
I did a little bit before I left for PAX, yeah. Yeah, the Zealot charge is pretty fucking crazy. I kept joking about how you could like run lurkers up to the Protoss and then burrow them and auto win, but you can't really do that anymore because when the Zealots get on top of them, they die like fucking instantly.
Yeah. Have you? What about the Adept? How's your experience been with that?
I haven't seen as many of those. They used to be really annoying, like when I played in the early game, or when I played earlier in the beta, but it seems like I don't see them as much anymore. Like, I don't see, like, any of the crazy, like, massive Adept openings or anything weird like that. I don't know if that's just because I'm not quite, like, I don't think I'm, like, high masters yet. I think my account is still mid-master, so maybe that's the reason why I haven't seen it as much, but... So, yeah, I don't really have any strong opinions on the Adept at the moment.
Okay, cool. Well, I think overall Red Bull was an awesome event. There were some grumblings from the community, and even Mr. Bitter expressed a little bit of disappointment with the viewership. I think that a lot of people made a really good point that this is just the funky stage of the beta, right?
Kind of. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I love Mr. Bitter, and I'm good friends with him, and we get drunk and talk to each other, and we talk sober too. But that tweet was so funny. How kind of, I don't know. I would say fairly out of touch it was. Like, Red Bull puts on one of the best shows and one of the absolute most fun shows for both the players, the audience, and probably the casters you could ever be a part of or watch. But they are one of the shittiest advertisers for their events I think anyone could ever have. And it's amazing. It's amazing that Red Bull is the event that does a bad job of advertising their shit. I mean, these guys throw people out of airplanes. Like, and they can't fucking advertise a StarCraft event to save their lives. It's actually really bad. And then, and this is the part that's going to rustle some jimmies, and that's fine. I'm okay with that because I've been doing this since before a lot of these people were even a part of the industry. To be honest, I love Greetor. I love Vibe. I love Nathanius most of the time. No, I'm just kidding. I love the guy. But if you're going to hold a premiere event like this, not advertise it, and then your top commentators are guys who either don't cast, like Vibe, who's a great player, a great guy again. I'm not trying to hate on these guys, but nobody would call Vibe a top tier or mid tier or even a commentator, I don't think. He has commentated before, but he's not a commentator. Greetorp is a guy who stepped away from the community and moved on. He's made appearances at WCS. He's done a couple of Red Bull stuff too. He is a commentator, but I don't think at any point in his career would anyone say that Greetorp is like the main commentator, like a guy that steps forward and drives your show forward and people get excited about. So if you're gonna do that kind of stuff for your talent pool, if you're gonna kind of be weird and experiment a little bit and then not advertise it and then also complain that viewership was low when you ran it in a sub mode from a beta for a game. Whoa! Whoa!
It was also during MSI too. Not like a huge conflict with him, but there's like at least 2 or 3 hours of overlap as well.
Yes, but MSI was like if we're talking shit shows like Red Bull didn't advertise, not great commentators.
MSI
is still an event here. MSI good commentators, great player pool, 0 advertisement, no stream for half of it, played in a chaotic place. Like that is an example of a sponsor that I hope we don't have to, but a lot of us can go like, goodbye. I talked about this a while ago on my stream, but it's like MSI is like, yo, they hired these people and they're like, hey, we gave you like $50,000. You guys said we would have an audience, and they're like, oh yeah, StarCraft 2 dead game, and it's like, no, it's not. It was the most that steals the show of shitty advertising. MSI, like people didn't even know it was happening.
So I actually have a comment on this I want to weigh in, and I'm not trying to like, air dirty laundry or anything, but just to comment on how poorly there's 2 big points for MSI that really for me were like WTF. Number 1 was forget advertising. I couldn't even ask my friends like who's casting this. Nobody knew. Like, I don't even know if Todd and Rotterdam knew that they were casting with Axel Toss until they arrived at the event. Like, I have no idea because I was asking around and like couldn't get answers. The second thing was we did the MSI North American qualifier, and I gotta tell you guys, I've never had a worse experience in my entire life trying to work with people to do things. They wanted us to do about 1 million things for free, and that's whatever. Like, we don't get paid to cast normally, so I wasn't about to start bitching about this. But they 2 hours before the broadcast, after like spending 5 hours trying to make me do all these like impossibly stupid overlays and commercials, they're like, "Oh, we forgot to mention you're gonna be casting on our channel, not yours." Like, that's just the straight up dumbest thing you can do. Last minute, be like, "Yeah, you can't use your channel, and we're not paying you. So good luck, have fun." Like, I just never had a worse experience working with people other than that. So I knew from the get go it was already gonna be a bit messy. Then I didn't get to watch it, but I through Twitter and Reddit like read all the stuff with the stream going wrong, and I just sat there going like, makes sense.
Jeff, I like your points about the about advertising. I didn't really notice it though because I was always looking like when's the next thing coming. Like I'm always looking at them, and I wasn't thinking about the fact that they weren't advertising, and I didn't really see that. But then when I look back to 2014, I can't really remember what advertising they did for the Red Bull Battlegrounds other than tweeting, hey, sign up for the qualifiers here. This is where the event will be. Off the top of my head, do you remember what the advertising was like back then? What they did for it?
Do I remember off the top of my head what advertising was like last year?
Well,
I have one point about this that I do remember. There was one of their qualifiers towards the end of the year where they didn't announce the qualifier till 3 days before the first qualifier. For like they had like 3 North American qualifiers for I don't remember which, but Red Bull did not even make a Team Liquid thread until 3 days beforehand. So like nobody knew what was going on. I only remember this because it overran one of our events and we had to like reschedule it.
Okay. Yeah, I can't remember what advertising efforts. That's what I'm getting at is I can't remember what advertising efforts they put in, but regardless, they also did have the different kind of people casting for those events as you were mentioning. So
it's just a weird detachment from reality. Like it would be they do such a good job. Like the pictures, the behind the scenes stuff, like all that. It's an amazing event.
The quality of the stream is amazing. Not a lot can do that.
But they took risks. They took risks by going Archon mode, which I think is a really fun thing that a lot of people should check out, but will probably always have lower viewership, and I think that's been proven so far.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, in this day and age, there's almost no weekend you can run an event without running into things. So that's a part of the territory. So with that being the climate that you're going to run an event in, the only thing that gives you a leg up, and this is something that Red Bull should have in spades, is getting the word out. Have the Red Bull tweet it out. Have fucking run some advertisement. I don't know. Like you're still not going to get 50,000 people on stream for an event like that, but you should get more than the 10,000 it was at most or something like that. It was like 13 at the. I can't remember what it was, but it was very low.
Right.
And it's a pseudo premier event. Like clearly it's not a premier event, but it's a good enough event that it should have gotten a lot more viewership. And I think. It's not like Mr. Bitter went on a rant hating on everyone. So I don't want to overblow this and be like, Mr. Bitter's like, I hate StarCraft. Everyone's fucked up. He just said, I think literally it was like real talk. Why did this have such bad viewership? And I think they need to look in the mirror to begin. And once they do those things, and if they still don't have viewership, then it's like, all right, well, this sucks.
Right.
Which can't happen.
Yeah, I think that summarizes it very well. Any final thoughts, Steven? You were at PAX. Did you go by the MSI event?
I didn't watch it that much. I didn't really watch it at all. I talked a lot to Todd and Rotterdam, and they were telling me about it. They said that the live experience was actually okay, even though there were a lot of like technical mishaps and bad streams going on, like for the actual like streamed event. But they said that in person it was okay, but they didn't seem like particularly thrilled.
Did you have a good time at PAX?
Yeah, it was okay. I was sick like a lot of the weekend, which like super bummed me out. I don't know why, just like sleeping a lot and shit. But like I don't know, maybe just traveling. But
did you go by yourself?
I mean, I traveled myself, but I went there with my girlfriend lives in Seattle, so I hung out with her most of the time.
Nice, cool. All right, so let's go in the last segment, and then we'll kick off with questions.